Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the third video in our Japan trip planning series. Every week in December, I'm going to be uploading a video which will hopefully help you plan your perfect Japan trip. Today we're going to be talking about the thing I get asked about the most, and that is everything that you need to know about the Japan Rail Pass. So let's go. The Japan Rail Pass is kind of like a super commuter pass. You know, if you travel to work by train, you often get like a seasonal pass, like a week pass or a month pass, where you can ride as many times you want as on the trains, and you just pay a flat fee. You pay a flat fee. The Japan Rail Pass is a bit like that, but for like almost all of the trains in Japan. So you pay this flat fee for a short amount of time, and then you can ride almost all of the trains across the whole country. It's amazing. Only tourists are eligible for the Japan Rail Pass, so you must be traveling to Japan on a short-term visa as a tourist. It's okay if you're traveling short-term for business, but you must be going in a small time period. If you are eligible for the Japan Rail Pass, you can buy one for a 7, 14 or 21 day validity period. So you can use it for 7, 14 or 21 days, and that will give you access to ride any JR rail train and a few other things completely. It's not really for free. I keep saying it's for free. It's not for free. You've paid for the pass, so it's as part of that price you can ride any of those Japan rail trains. I mentioned earlier that the pass covers not just trains, and if you want to get a full list of everything that the Japan Rail Pass covers, my recommendation is still to check out the article on japanguide.com, and it goes into it in a little bit more detail. As I mentioned, all Japan Rail trains are covered, and that includes the bullet trains, because the bullet trains are run by Japan Rail. So amazing. You can also get the monorail from Haneda Airport, the Narita Express from Narita Airport, which isn't the fastest train to get from Narita Airport into Tokyo, but it's still very quick, and I love it. I absolutely love that train. You can also get the JR ferry to Miyajima, so from sort of an area just outside of Hiroshima to that beautiful Itsukushima shrine, which I mentioned last time. And there are some JR run buses that you can take as well. Now, perhaps not obviously, there are actually some trains and train routes that you're not able to take in Japan. And as a general rule, if you're trying not to complicate things, you're allowed to take every JR train, including the bullet train, and not metro lines or private railway lines. So that's like your general rule. Like if you're just, this is too complicated, I don't want to think about it, JR trains you can take. So if it's a bullet train or anything that's got JR in front of it, the JR Hida line, JR Yamanote line, any of those lines you can take. Metro lines and private railways you generally cannot take. Japan has a number of private railways, and these railways are run by companies which have been allowed to set up their own railway mini network in certain areas and run it themselves privately. The one that tends to affect Japan Rail Pass holders the most is the one that goes down to Hakone. I believe it's the Adakyu company which runs what they call the Romance Car, a beautiful train which goes all the way to Hakone direct from Tokyo. But as this is a private company, it's not covered by the Japan Rail Pass. So when you're making your plans, double check that where you're going, trains are covered by the Japan Rail Pass. In almost all cases, there will be a Japan Rail route to get you to the same place that a private rail route will take you to, and it will only be marginally longer. For instance, there's a very famous route which heads straight up to NIKKO from Tokyo, I think using the Tokyu line, which is a private railway route. It's a direct train, but if you have a Japan Rail Pass, you can do what Liam and I did on our last trip and go to Utsunomiya on the amazing bullet train, and then take a route from Utsunomiya into NIKKO, which is fully covered by the Japan Rail Pass. So it is possible, and please check out Japan Guide for information on how to get to places using the JR Pass. They're perfect at giving you advice on that. There are two major types of trains which are exempt from the Japan Rail Pass, so you won't be able to use them, and that is the Nozomi on the Tokaido Shinkansen and the Mizuho on the Sanyo Shinkansen, and these are massive tourist routes. The Nozomi trains are the fastest way to get between Tokyo and Osaka and Kyoto. I think the trip from Tokyo to Kyoto is about 2 hours and 15 minutes. But if you have a Japan Rail Pass, you aren't eligible to take the Nozomi train, but you can take the next fastest train, which is a Hikari train. Now, Hikari trains are actually exactly the same type of train. They're usually an N700 or an N700 Advanced, and they have the same top speed as the Nozomi trains. However, you stop at more stations. So the only difference is that you stop at more stations taking a Hikari train as you do when you take the Nozomi train, and that's why it takes a little bit longer. I believe the Sanyo line is exactly the same situation. The Mizuho is the fastest sort of train type because it stops at less stations. If you are holding a Japan Rail Pass, you will be eligible to ride the Sakura train, which is the next fastest train, and it will stop at more stations. If you're worried about this, my best advice to you is don't be. This is not going to impact your vacation. The extra half an hour that you have to spend on a train because it stops at a few more stations is going to make extremely little difference. So just do not worry about it. This is completely fine. As a general rule, metros are not going to be covered by the Japan Rail Pass because they're usually run by another government entity or by a private organization. So if you're traveling to cities, you're going to have to pay for your metro separately. There are, however, some sort of exceptions. It's not really an exception, maybe a piece of advice. If you travel to Tokyo, there's a number of JR routes which actually go all the way around the city, including the Yamanote line. So if your JR pass is still valid when you're in Tokyo, make sure you use the Yamanote line and the other JR lines as much as you possibly can. Right, let's get on to it and let's talk about prices. It's the big one. I'm going to display a table on the screen right now which shows you all the prices of the Japan Rail Pass as of December of 2019, and I'm going to show you the conversion rates as well into a few common currencies for people who I know watch these videos. So have a look. The rest of the video I'm going to be talking about the prices mainly in yen because, as we all know, exchange rates fluctuate. So I could give you a price that it is now in pounds and it could change later if the pound increases in price or decreases. So this is what it is of today. Please double check when you're paying for your pass. Obviously double check everything that you're paying for online, but double check the price if you're going to get one yourself. One of the things that you'll see in this table is the green car. Green car's a little bit confusing. It's not a carbon neutral car or anything like that, although that might be quite cool. The green car is actually the Japanese rail term for first class. So it's the first class car. It's not a crazy expense to upgrade your Japan Rail Pass to a green car pass, but I don't think it is worth it, and I have never bought one. The reason why is because there are actually very few trains that have first class. The bullet trains definitely have first class, and not many others apart from that. A few limited express ones will as well. Japan Rail trains are so fantastically clean, quiet, well maintained, and have plenty of legroom. I find shelling out the extra 10,000 yen for a week for a green car pass just isn't worth it. So I don't do it. Make the decision for yourself, but for me, my recommendation is it's not worth it. People who have done some research of the Japan Rail Pass will probably know that there are a few regional passes that you can get as well, and I'll put a picture of that over here. I'm not going to talk about the regional passes much in this trip because they're only really valuable if you're going to a very, very specific area of Japan. If you leave Tokyo and go to Kyoto, you've already gone between two Japan Rail Pass regions, so it doesn't really make sense if you're doing that kind of trip. If, however, you're just visiting Kyushu and you're just going to do stuff around Kyushu, then possibly the Japan Rail Pass for that region would be more applicable to you. So check it out, but if you're doing a general Japan trip, I find the regional passes never really work out. Right, let's talk about when to buy and how to get your hands on an actual Japan Rail Pass. Buying a Japan Rail Pass is actually a little bit complex. I'm going to sort of detail it out very quickly and then we'll go into a few tips. You need to purchase a Japan Pass outside of your country from a distributor, like a website or something, and get one of these. This is a Japan Rail Pass voucher. It looks like the pass, it ain't the pass, it's a voucher. So you should get these and they'll come in the post. When you go to Japan, you hand them in to a JR Pass exchange counter and they will give you back the actual Japan Rail Pass. So just remember, you buy them in your own country, you get a voucher, take the voucher to Japan, exchange it for the actual pass. So if you got that, the rest of this is simple. I usually buy my pass about a month before my trip, and I get it from Japan Rail Pass by Japan Experience. This is a website that I use in the UK, and they've been reliable for me every single time I bought a Japan Rail Pass, so that's why I recommend them. There are a number of other great distributors in the UK, and if you don't live in the UK, please check the link in the description, which will give some indication of who you can purchase your Japan Rail Pass from. It's going to be a distributor within your country. They'll run a website similar to this. You can fill out some details and they'll send you this voucher, just like Japan Rail Pass by Japan Experience did for me. Now we have our vouchers, the next thing that we need to do is fly to Japan and then exchange them. So we need to exchange them for the actual Japan Rail Pass. There are a number of places to exchange your Japan Rail Pass. As a rule of thumb, every single airport and most very large train stations will have a Japan Rail Pass counter for you to exchange your pass. Tokyo Station definitely has one, Hakone Station has one in Fukuoka, and obviously Narita Airport and Haneda Airport and all those kind of big airports. I'm sure Osaka Airport has one as well. If you want to find out, here we go, where you can exchange your Japan Rail Pass, I'll leave the link for this in the description, which shows you exactly where all the Japan Rail Pass counters are and their opening times. It's quite common when people arrive to Japan that they're not going to want to activate their Japan Rail Pass from that day, because you're probably going to spend a few days in Tokyo and then begin your travel a few days like sort of into your trip. If that's the case, you can still go and exchange your voucher for your pass when you arrive in Japan at the airport, and just tell them at that point the day that you want your Japan Rail Pass to activate. So if I arrive on a Friday but I do not want my pass to activate till Monday, I can just tell them Monday's date and my Japan Rail Pass will activate then. So we paid for the pass, we got the voucher, we exchanged it, we now have it, it's activated, the day has happened. What do we do? From when your pass is activated, your pass is essentially your ticket wherever you travel. If you ever encounter a ticket officer, showing your pass is enough to show that you have a valid ticket to ride on whichever train that you're on. When you approach the ticket barriers at a Japan station, don't go through the automated ticket barriers. Your JR pass is not going to work. You have to go to either the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the ticket barriers and find the guard. Show the guard your Japan Rail Pass and they will let you through like sort of the side area around the barriers. If it's the first time using your Japan Rail Pass, the guard will stamp it to show that you've used your Japan Rail Pass and then let you go on to get onto the train. Some trains either require or have seat reservation sections. I say have because if we take the bullet train, for example, the bullet train has reserved seats areas and free seating, so seats where you do not need to have a reserved ticket, which is quite interesting. If you do want to reserve a seat or need to because you're taking a train which requires it, you have to go to a JR Pass ticket counter. I don't believe you can use the machines yet. That might change in the future, but right now you actually have to go to a ticket counter and tell them about what train that you want to get on and the times that you want to ride the trains. It would be good if you bring something to write down on or use some piece of paper to write down stuff there, because I found use of English at the ticket gates can sometimes be a little bit tough. So have your Google Translate ready and remember to write down the times that you want to take the train to help the people out in making sure that you get a reservation on the correct train. This might scare a few people, but usually I book my seat reservations on the day that I am taking the train. This has been effective about 85% of the time. Sometimes I haven't got a seat reservation. For you, I would recommend that a couple of days before the train that you want to take, try and get your seat reservation. So as you arrive in Kyoto, maybe book your seat reservations for your leaving trip from Kyoto as you arrive to be absolutely sure. The reason why I don't worry about it so much is because of that free seating that I was talking about on the bullet train earlier. If I cannot get a reserved seat on the train that I want to, I will just chance my luck and try and go on the free seating instead. And actually, when traveling with Liam, I have found that every single time we have managed to get two seats together when we've done free seating, when we've managed not to get a reserved seat ticket. Just remember though, if the train does require you to make seat reservations, then make sure you get them a few days early, because once those ones are out, they're out. Some trains don't have free seating area, so book early, a couple of days before, for those trains that have reserved seating only. So I think that's all the details about the Japan Rail Pass and how it works. Now let's talk a little bit about whether I think it's worth it. And I'm laughing a little bit because I'm such an advocate of the Japan Rail Pass that I almost think it's worth it in nearly all cases. A very, very simple way for you to understand whether a Japan Rail Pass is worth it for you is if you are traveling between Tokyo to Kyoto and back in a 7-day period, it is almost certainly worth it for you to get one. And the reason is the trip between Tokyo to Kyoto, which way is it? Tokyo to Kyoto is about 14,000 yen, and so with the few other trips that you'll take on the Japan Rail Pass during that 7-day period, you're easily going to go over the sort of almost 30,000 yen that the 7-day ticket costs you. If you're not doing that trip and you're still unsure as to whether it's going to be cost effective for you, you can use Hyperdia to sort of calculate it. I did a quick analysis about whether it would be worth it if I was just going to Kanazawa. I think the trip up to Kanazawa, Tokyo to Kanazawa, is 14,000 yen. So again, if I go to Kanazawa and back, it's almost 30,000 yen. And especially if I made a stop off in Nagano, I would definitely eclipse the 30,000 yen. So a trip from Tokyo to Nagano and Kanazawa, it's still worth it for me to get the 7-day Japan Rail Pass. When the Japan Rail Pass does not make sense is when you are only staying in one city. So if you're traveling to Japan and you're just going to be hanging out in Tokyo, it's going to be extremely unlikely that a Japan Rail Pass is going to save you any money unless you're making multiple day trips out of Tokyo. So if you're going to go to Hakone, Nikko, a few other places, then it might work out to be cost effective. But if not, it's probably not worth you buying a Japan Rail Pass at all. If you're traveling to Japan on a shorter trip for 1 week, for example, the Japan Rail Pass is still going to be worth it if you're making the trip out between 2 major cities. If you're going Tokyo to Kyoto and back, or Tokyo to Kanazawa and back, it's worth it. If you're just going to be staying in one city, again, not worth it. I think that's everything, I think. I want to finish on a few things. I asked a question on my Instagram account, which I'll leave a link to below, about what people would like to know about the Japan Rail Pass, and I think I've covered mostly everybody's comments and questions. I got one from an account called Too Small for This Big World. That's right, isn't it? Too Small for This Big World, which is asking what are my favorite trains that I've taken using the Japan Rail Pass. My favorite probably is going to be the Kinozaki 1, which goes from Kyoto straight north up to Kinozaki Onsen, mostly because the train was lovely, like it really was a cool train, but the route was unbelievable. You go past castles, rivers, mountains, everything. The route was spectacular. Also, not a lot can beat the Hayabusa Shinkansen. I have a special place in my heart for the N700, but the Hayabusa Shinkansen just looks like something out of a mech anime. It's really, really, really cool. If you're lucky enough to be in Japan during the time that the bullet trains are running a special, you're usually able with the Japan Rail Pass to just pop on to one of the special trains. I've ridden on the Evangelion bullet train, which is one of the highlights of my life. The Evangelion bullet train was amazing, and I think at the moment they might have an art one maybe, and they've done Hello Kitty in the past, so look out for the special bullet trains. They'll have signs everywhere when you're in Japan. You are eligible to ride them if you have a Japan Rail Pass. Lastly, one other train. This is the Super Azusa. It runs between Tokyo and Matsumoto, I believe. I've not done it. I hope I will get on it, even just for one stop this time, because this thing looks like a spaceship. It's amazing. I've been on it, I've just not ridden on it. I've not taken it between 2 stations, but this one's really cool. Lastly, I'm going to leave you guys with a quote from somebody else who left an answer to my question, which is the boy who has everything. I hope he really does have everything. He said, "No questions, but JR Pass is legit amazing. The best thing ever for a tourist." And I wholeheartedly agree. It's such an amazing way to travel all the way around Japan. It's hassle-free, you're completely relaxed, it makes its money back easily if you're traveling around the country, and it's a fantastic service, and you get to ride all the cool bullet trains, and it's awesome. So, thoroughly recommended. If you have any further questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll try to get to those, and I'll leave links for the websites and such that I was showing you earlier on. So thank you so much for watching this. We'll be back next time with hotels, sort of how to book hotels around Japan, because yeah, that can be a bit tricky. So we'll do that next time. Thanks everyone for watching. See you again soon. Bye.